Have you ever been sick as a dog? I'll bet you have. Have you ever heard the term, he's a sick puppy? I bet you've heard that one too. How about sick as a parrot? No? Well, I had neither, but we're going to explore all of these sayings in this episode of History of Everyday Sayings. This is your host, Stephen Carter, and I welcome you to this episode of History of Everyday Sayings. This show is for you if you're a logophile, meaning, of course, a lover of words, a writer, a philomath, a speaker, or you are someone who loves history tidbits you can use to impress friends and family. You know, so many ideas for this podcast come out of conversations that I have with friends, family members, and this one is no exception. I was talking with someone who was still battling the aftermath of COVID, and he said, "Oh my God, Steve, I am just sick as a dog." After our conversation, I thought, I wonder where that phrase comes from. And in the process of researching the phrase sick as a dog, I came across a couple of other phrases. One I know you've heard, and that is sick puppy. The second, well, I had never heard, but it is a thing, sick as a parrot. Sick as a parrot. For the definition of sick as a dog, we go to dictionary.com. Dictionary.com tells us, sick as a dog, the definition, very ill, especially from a stomach malady. For example, I don't know what was in that stew, but I was sick as a dog all night. And according to Dictionary.com, this simile was first recorded in 1705. And it adds a little notation. Why a dog should be viewed as especially sick remains unclear. For additional insights to the source and the meaning of sick as a dog, we go to gingersoftware.com. That site tells us the origin of the phrase sick as a dog can be found in the early 1700s, when it was common to compare undesirable things to dogs. The explanation for this isn't that people don't like dogs. It is that disease, such as the plague, were often spread via animals like rats, birds, and, unfortunately, dogs. And that closes the quote on gingersoftware.com. I think it is odd that we've come to the term sick as a dog. Why not sick as a rat, or a sick bird, or sick as a bird? Well, for whatever reason, that is the origin of the term sick as a dog. How about the phrase sick puppy? According to phrases.org.uk, this phrase originated in America in the early 20th century. There are many examples in print of people being described as, quote, like a sick puppy, close quote. These usually relate to men mooning around after women they are attracted to. For example, this piece from the Indianapolis Star, dated 7th May 1911, and it's quoted, "When a noted actress is in town, said one detective yesterday, lots of times some poor fool wears a carnation in his coat lapel, will whine around after her like a sick puppy," close quote. As I'm sure you've heard in conversation, sick puppy does remain part of our normal conversation even today, as does sick as a dog, of course. So how about as sick as a parrot? Again, we go to phrases.org.uk. And by the way, I'll have all of these citations linked in the show notes. In phrases.org, to the question, what's the meaning of the phrase as sick as a parrot? To be as sick as a parrot is a jocular expression used to mean someone is highly annoyed or exasperated. According to this resource, this expression is quite recent. It originated in the UK in the 1970s. Unlike most as similes, it doesn't rely on the fact that parrots are often sick. Although as sick as a parrot doesn't appear in the Monty Python Dead Parrot sketch, first broadcast in December 1969, that is where the idea originated. There are several as dead as similes, amongst the most notable examples being as dead as a dodo and as dead as a doornail. The Dead Parrot sketch writers John Cleese and Graham Chapman didn't use either of these, however, but they did list as many ways of being dead that they could think of. And there'll be a link in the show notes to this entry. But some of their entries here: stone dead, deceased, passed on, no more, ceased to be, stiff, bereft of life, off the twig, sounds quite British, kicked in the bucket, shuffled off his mortal coil. This sketch was hugely popular in the UK, and many people can quote chunks of it word for word. The idea that a parrot might be an example of something sick began with that sketch at the very end of the 1960s. There you have the origin of As Sick as a Dog, and we have added a few bonus phrases in this episode. Few people know the origins of these terms, but you can now count yourself among the tiny minority of people who do. If you're curious about exploring any of these, you'll find the references I use for this episode linked in the show notes. To hear more amazing history of everyday sayings, I do encourage you to subscribe where you get your podcasts. You can listen to previous episodes and learn ever so much more at the website stressreliefradio.com, stressreliefradio.com. If you would like to contact me, my email address is cartermethod@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Until our next visit, your host here, Stephen Carter, wishing you and your loved ones blessings in abundance.